Hey guys, what's up? Dax here. Welcome to another video. Now, over the last couple of months, my videos about abandoned F1 tracks, tracks I'd like to see come back, all that sort of stuff has really kind of blown up on this channel. So I wanted to sort of write down in this video right here, my sort of maybe like top 7, top 8 tracks I'd really like to see come back to Formula 1. Of course, leave your suggestions and thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below, but I'm going to run through my list right now of some tracks I'd like to see back on the F1 calendar. Now, these are tracks where it maybe could be realistic they could come back. I mean, some people might suggest like old Hockenheim, old Österreichring. I mean, stuff like that isn't really feasible because they'd have to basically re-dig up a load of stuff. So these tracks I hope are somewhat feasible that could come back to the sport. But the first one on my list is Turkey. Now, we talked about this in the most recent abandoned F1 tracks video. Yeah, that was a track that I just loved so much. The cars going around turn 8 on the limit was absolutely fantastic. It was a sight to behold in a way. I wish that I had the opportunity to sit there, seeing cars go around, seeing them sort of on the absolute limit. It's something that there aren't too many tracks on the calendar right now that you get to see that. So that's one of the main reasons why I'd like to see Turkey back. I also obviously think it has some history in the sport. The Webber Vettel crash, that was something that I will never forget. That was one of the best seasons of Formula 1 I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, I'd like to see maybe some more things like that happen in the sport. I guess Turkey was just a part of so much of my history of growing up because it came onto the calendar like 2005, 2006. I should know, I had it in the video, but that was sort of the era whilst I was growing up in Formula 1. It was always there, and like whenever it was cut, it was like, this is a bit of a shame. I've watched this track on the calendar for so long, and it's a shame it's gone. At the same time, I thought it provided quite good racing because at that pretty technical first sector where there wasn't really a great place to overtake, but then you had the second sector obviously with turn 8, and the last sector which was like, this could be one of the fastest tracks on the calendar if you just took the last sector because obviously big old straights. And yeah, I really enjoyed the track basically. It's one that I think provided somewhat decent racing, had some fantastic corners in it, and I think in a part of the world right now where there aren't too many tracks, I think we should definitely get some more tracks in Europe. I mean, definitely that part of Europe as well. So yeah, it'll be great to sit back on the calendar. I don't know how feasible it really is. I mean, I don't know what the problem with, with the financial situations or whatever, but if they could get that sorted, it'd be absolutely fantastic to get that back on the calendar. Another one we previously mentioned in one of these Lost Abandoned Tracks videos is the Indian Grand Prix track. Is it the Buddha? Yeah, the Buddha International Circuit. So that's a track that sort of recently got cut from the series. I mean, 2013 was the last Grand Prix there, so we haven't missed too many years from it, but at the same time, we've missed a whole generation of cars, really. So it is kind of disappointing that they decided to go the route of getting it off the calendar. I mean, the problems, once again, it's just loads of fans love it, but then at the same time, loads of fans hate it at the same time. So it's like, does it balance itself out for the guys at the top of F1 that are like, we're seeing all this negativity and this positivity? Unfortunately, as the way the world goes, you normally listen to the negativity because that's normally one that are the most vicious in their attacks. So yeah, that's kind of a shame. I mean, I know there were financial problems again there in India trying to get the Grand Prix sorted. I think it was a dispute, it was a tax dispute that stopped this track continuing on. But yeah, if they can get that sorted, I mean, it's still a really good facility. I still think it holds one of the best licenses around it, if not the best license of an F1 track, an FIA approved track. So yeah, I think there's a real chance this could come back on the calendar. It didn't provide, for me, the greatest racing in the world, but it was still a really interesting track. With that really long straight, the back straight, which basically could be like an airplane runway, it was so long. But then you also had the really technical sort of middle sector after the long straight, and also the last sector as well was quite technical as well. Was the long straight in the middle sector? I'm not even sure exactly where the sectors went, but yeah, you had that big old straight which basically sort of split the track in half somewhat. So yeah, it was a good mix of high speed and technical corners, meaning you had to balance the car in one of either, two ways, whether you're going to go for that straight line speed or the downforce. It was an interesting battle, I'm sure, for the engineers to set up a car for the Indian Grand Prix. Love to see it back on the calendar, and I think out of all these on the list, it could be one of the most realistic as well. Next up, we have Long Beach over in the USA. Now, I love watching IndyCar races around Long Beach, but I guess there is one kind of big problem about this track. It's very bumpy. Now, IndyCars suit it somewhat because they're a little bit higher up the ground than Formula 1 cars, but Indy cars are still pretty low down nowadays. I mean, Indy cars used to be raised up a little bit more, but now they're pretty much to the level of Formula One cars in terms of how low they are to the ground, and that does make a difference. When the track is super bumpy, you can of course have to make adjustments, but how the car, how low the car naturally sits is going to be a problem. But I would love for them just to do like a couple of test runs. Is it even possible to get an F1 car around that track? I mean, we saw Sebastian Bourdais pull off some amazing overtakes in the most recent Long Beach Grand Prix over in the IndyCar. If you haven't seen that, by the way, definitely just go and YouTube it or whatever. Some fantastic overtakes. I mean, a triple overtake you'll probably never see again in motorsport. Fantastic. But yeah, as for Formula One cars, it might be a little bit tough. I don't know how great the overtaking would be. I mean, back when they did used to race on this, I think it was the 70s and the 80s, cars were a little bit more loose. They're a little bit more all over the place, meaning if you set up a corner perfectly, you could probably get a run on the next guy if they made a mistake. So yeah, it's not so much like that in Formula One nowadays. The cars are very much sort of squatted on the ground and they're very much sort of stuck to the tarmac, which could mean overtaking is tough. But still, I think as a sort of facility and all that sort of stuff, as a place where racing can be held, Long Beach is right up there of tracks that should come back, because obviously being on the beach and all that sort of stuff, it really makes for a great setting and scenery as well. But I don't think it's too likely, but personally I'd love to see it back on the calendar. Next up, we have got Watkins Glen. Now, this is another track in America, so we've got 2 in a row right now. But yeah, I don't think too many big events get held at Watkins Glen anymore. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I know NASCAR goes there. I think IMSA might go there. I don't think IndyCar goes there, does it? Does IndyCar go there? I'm not really too sure. But at the same time, it was a historic venue in the sport, wasn't it? There's so many great memories to be held at this track. I mean, once again, it's kind of sad that F1 in America never really took off in the way it did. I mean, I understand there's a bit of a stigma around it, just like we have a stigma for like IndyCar and NASCAR in Europe. I guess they have, some guys over there at least have a stigma for Formula One over there. So it's kind of a shame that we can't all work together and maybe get some more American tracks back on the calendar. But it's also probably a financial thing. It's probably not the best facility for Formula One nowadays, is it, Watkins Glen? Whilst it probably was great back in the day, I'm not sure how an F1 car would run that well around nowadays. But yeah, in terms of a track, I think it's a really fun track. I mean, I don't think, once again, like Long Beach, I don't think it would be great for overtaking, but at the same time, just to see F1 cars go around there again, I kind of just want to see it come back. It probably never will, but I think Watkins Glen could kind of fit in there on the calendar. A bit of a street track-esque kind of thing, where the barriers aren't too far away. I think it could be interesting. I mean, if F1 cars ever went back there, it would be an entertaining spectacle, let's say that, because, yeah, I think there's quite a high likelihood there would be quite a lot of crashes in that race. Next up is Magny-Cours in France. So we discussed the reasons why this isn't on the calendar anymore. It's basically in the middle of nowhere, and obviously track problems as well. But in terms of racing, I really enjoyed this track. I actually really loved driving this track. I didn't particularly like driving it when I first drove it, because I think if I remember correctly, it was the F106 game for the PS4. I can't remember what's it called now. Career Challenge? Is it Career Challenge? Championship Edition? I feel like it's Championship Edition. Whatever, on that game, and on the Career Challenge, and all that on the PS2, I couldn't really ever drive it, but as I played it and played it and played it more, I really, really enjoyed that track. And as soon as it was cut from the calendar, was it in 2009? I was disappointed. I was like, man, I love this track. I just got to the point where I enjoy this track, and then you finally cut it off the calendar. So I was a bit disappointed when that happened, but thankfully we do have a French Grand Prix this year, which is really, really good to sit back in France, especially now we have 3 F1 drivers from France in the series, obviously going to Paul Ricard. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to play out. I kind of want to go at the same time, because it would be nice to be back in like an inaugural event at Paul Ricard after it's all been redone. But at the same time, I'm not sure. I just can't see it having as good racing as Magny-Cours did. I mean, Magny-Cours, while once again it probably had the best overtakes in in terms of like Spa or Monza or all that stuff, they didn't really have that same sort of, the features of the track weren't there for it to be a mass overtaking track. It still had some good races and some historic moments. I mean, cars going through the last couple of corners as well, when you're braking and trying to get it turned in at the same time for that, I don't know, medium speed right-hander before the chicane, right at the end of the lap. I've always found that corner really tricky, and also obviously got the long straightish straight thing, braking to the hairpin. It had some historic corners which provided some pretty interesting racing. I think F1 cars would work around here nowadays, but maybe in terms of like not having massive runoff and all that sort of stuff, maybe that's why I decided to go Paul Ricard instead of Magny-Cours for the 2018 French Grand Prix. Next up is Fuji in Japan. Now, a lot of people wanted me to put this in the Abandoned series, but like, it's not abandoned. People still drive this track quite a lot. I mean, it's used quite a bit in Japanese series. They go in the World Endurance Championship, so it's far from abandoned, this track. So that's the reason why it hasn't been in that series. But I kind of enjoy this track. I don't know, this is going to be bad because I never really enjoyed driving Suzuka. In fact, it's one of my least favourite tracks to drive in any game of Suzuka. Don't ask me why. It's probably because I'm really slow there. And if I'm really slow there, it's probably going to dent what my feelings towards the track are. But I never got on with Suzuka. I never really enjoyed it, which always made me go on the side of, I want Fuji back because I feel like I can drive Fuji a little bit better. Maybe that's just a selfish thing in games. I don't really know. But I always personally enjoyed races and driving Fuji more than Suzuka, which is going to get absolutely destroyed in the comment section. I'm 100% sure about that. But at the same time, I'm here to voice my actual opinions. We don't have to all agree on the tracks we enjoy and dislike. So yeah, for me personally, I really liked Fuji, a track which had that long straight once again, the hard braking at the end of the big straight. There was the hard braking that always caught off a couple of people. The middle sector was quite interesting as well. When it rained, the torrential rain was in 2007, I think it was, where Alonso spun off. Quite a few people spun off. Yeah, it provided some good races, and being as where it is, the weather conditions could flick, like that basically, which always provides good racing. When the weather can change in a moment of seconds, it can always provide good racing for the fans. And obviously we had the historic 1976 Japanese Grand Prix where James Hunt won the title, all that sort of stuff. History comes into these decisions somewhat as well for me, but I actually really enjoy watching cars go around this track as well. Seeing the cars flat out on that straight of Fuji was a sight to behold. Now, lastly on this list, you probably thought I wasn't going to put it in. You probably thought I'd forgot, but no, it's going to be on here. It is Imola. Now, of course, Imola has had its ups and downs as a track over the years. It was taken off the calendar, wasn't it? 2006 was its last race, and we've never gone back there since. But it still holds quite big races. I mean, Formula 3 goes there, if I remember correctly. I think Formula Renault, did it go there? I feel like it kind of might have gone there. European Le Mans races and that sort of stuff. So some maybe tier 2 category motorsports have been there over the last couple of years. But it's still a very, very decent track. I think it still holds a very good FIA license once again. So it's just like, it's such a historic track. I mean, even though unfortunately we had the big accidents, losing Ratzenberger and Senna in that same day of same weekend, that was absolutely tragic, and we should never forget that. That's obviously probably part of the reason why people are a little bit dubious about going back there now, especially now the F1 cars are even faster. But at the same time, it was just such an amazing track to see cars go around. So many different types of corners. You had that main straight thing where you're sort of going flat out, but you're at the same time turning, and then into turn one you're sort of turning, being flat out, then braking. It was just a fantastic track to see F1 cars go around, and I feel like there were corners on the track where you could overtake if you were brave enough. It was definitely one of those tracks where, if you have big balls, you're going to get some overtakes done. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I really enjoyed making this list, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it as well. If you'd like me to maybe make a part 2 about tracks that should come back, feasible tracks that should come back, because I don't want loads of comments about maybe we should bring out the Nürburgring. I mean, yes, the Nürburgring is still there, but they will never race F1 cars around there competitively again. I'm 100% sure about that. The Nordschleife Nürburgring, I mean, not the Nürburgring. Yeah, you know what I mean. So yeah, please leave your suggestions, thoughts, comments, all that stuff down below. Please remember to leave a like on the video if you did enjoy it. That's always appreciated. And subscribe if you're new to my channel. Subscribe if you are new to my channel, and maybe hit that notifications bell if you haven't already. If you're already subscribed, just do that, because otherwise you might miss a couple of videos thanks to YouTube kind of messing up. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, guys, and yeah, I'm relieved now. University is gone a bit downhill, not in a bad way, but the stress levels are gone a bit downhill, because we had our big hand in on Friday last week, and yeah, there was so much stress building up to that, and I was like, I can't make any videos, I've got to get all this work done. But yeah, I got it done, and now we've got 3 weeks I think left, 3 weeks of university left, and then I'm going on holiday the day after we break up, which is awesome. Going to Formula E in Berlin, then to Denmark. Should be good. Thanks for watching, guys. See you all soon. It's been Axel out here. Goodbye.